Hello everyone, thanks for coming. This is our fourth and last lecture of a spring lecture series. And today we have Inés Martín and Luis Pancorbo from Pancorbo Arquitectos. And usually I have, what I have done during the whole year is try to bring someone to introduce our guest speaker. Today I have reserved that privilege for myself because I have known them for a long time. So I have prepared a little bit of an introduction that will be promised very short. So Inés and Luis are both associate professors of architecture at the University of Virginia, as well as founders and partners of Pancorbo Arquitectos. They have won 21 awards in design competitions and 10 awards for the build work, including, and these are only to mention the ones, the American recent ones, the recent AZ Awards in Canada, the ARAA Awards, and the ACSA Faculty Design Award. The design work has been published in more than 60 international architectural magazines from Spain, obviously, France, Germany, Argentina, Korea, Netherlands, Canada, and the US. I have known Inés and Luis personally for many years now. They studied in the same university as I did, in the ETSAM, the Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura in Madrid. And we have also shared as friends the adventure of moving a family with small kids from Madrid to the American South. They did it in 2015, and we did it in 2014. So it was very recent. There were quite a few Skype connections, not Zoom yet at that point. Right? And these last few days I have been thinking about what makes their work distinctive, looking at it from the American perspective, from maybe your perspective. And my conclusion, which I hope they share, is that what is unique about their projects is how they are defined by ambiguous and hybrid conditions. First, they are often imagined through strong tectonic ideas, which, as you will see today, entail a great level of technical competence and research. However, that competence is always at the service of an expansive material imagination, of an understanding of architecture as a cultural event rather than a technical apparatus. Second, most of their sense of inventiveness and experimentation occurs in an environment defined by a scarcity, which is, most of their build work is in Spain, right? By the lack of the resources that high-end architecture usually requires on most of the countries of the world. In that way, much of the creativity we see in their build work is employed in activating what we could call critical efficiencies, finding strategic ways to employ usually tight budgets without giving up any of the architecture's conceptual or even aesthetic aspirations. Finally, their projects are obviously related to the legacy of the Spanish modern movement, and therefore to a mythical architecture of the past. Right? That is something that is maybe not that obvious for you guys, but for an Spanish public, it's very, very clear how they are connected to figures that came before us. Very especially, mostly through the relationship with their master, Julio Canolazo, who is one of the most important masters of architecture, modern architecture modernity, and with whom they work for quite a long time. But at the same time, they are profoundly contemporary and speculative. They have this connection with the past, with our modern past, but they also are profoundly of their time and even of the future. It is an incredible pleasure to have Inés and Luis here today. I hope you will enjoy and learn from their projects as much as I do. Thanks for coming, guys.
So thank you, David, for the presentation. We have been here in Clemson several times for final reviews, but this is the first time that we're going to talk about our work. So we're going to divide the lecture in different parts. Some of them will be led by Luis, some by me, just to try to do not overlap in the speaking. So
we're going to do this several times. So I think this is the problem of having like a hybrid kind of practice, with a partner. So, and we like to always to state, for us the most important thing of a architectural practice that is based on research or that is experimental is to try to frame the practice in a way that is more conceptual. So we're going to start with some kind of a statement, okay, that is about hybridization and impurity. That is, architecture is a hybrid and impure discipline, okay, unlike other disciplines like music, for example. And the impurity, it creates like a lot of possibilities of hybridization with other disciplines. Okay, so in our case, in our practice, we think that we basically are in between, we are a bridge in between art and engineering, okay, because of the kind of education that we had in Spain, and therefore our architecture share conditions of both fields. No? So for us, engineering offers technological answers to technological or physical questions. No? So this is very important to be stated. No? That is, the questions and answers of engineering are technological. Okay, and the aim of engineering is the modification of the future. It's the innovation is through the creation of artifacts that are inscribed in the present. Okay, and engineering produces a sustained disciplinary progress. Okay, on the other hand, art offers cultural answers to cultural problems and questions. And the aim of art is unlike engineering, that is the modification of the future, is the modification of the past, in our opinion. That is the modification of the cultural traditions, the history of art through cultural artifacts that are inscribed in the contemporary culture. The concept of disciplinary progress does not apply in art. I mean, there is no disciplinary progress between the Parthenon or the Pantheon of Rome and a work of Le Corbusier. You cannot say that it's better or worse. No? And in our case, our discipline, architecture, offers technological answers to both technical and cultural problems and questions. Okay? So for us, it's very important the first part of this statement, that is, architecture is a technological response to questions that can be technological or not. Okay? And the aim of architecture is twofold. Is as a technical activity is the modification of the future, like creating innovation through like the technical part of architecture, but also is the modification of the past, of the traditions where you come from. And that's why we are going to start this lecture with our tradition, where we come from. That is this. Julio Canolaso, as you were talking at the beginning, is an architect that was born in 1920 and belongs to the second generation of the Spanish modernity. So it's a generation that they were modern, they were like based on the international style, but also they recovered a lot of the traditional knowledge of the Spanish architecture. So he's an architect that has like a huge body of work, okay? And is very eclectic. He's able to work with different forms and different programs in a way that is very special. He has a very special kind of methodology of work that is based on the exploitation or the utilization of the tradition, of different traditions, depending on where he's operating with the architecture. For example, these are two good examples of how he used to operate with architecture. So these two buildings are the same building. It's a labor university. It's a university for plumbers, woodworkers. So it's not a high education university. It's for artisans, okay? And they have exactly the same program, exactly the same area, but they are situated, the sites are in two different areas of Spain. One is in the north and one is in the south. And you can see the difference that he's able to make, how he's able to integrate the traditions of architecture depending on the site he's operating. For example, this is the Labor University of Almeria in the south of Spain, and he's using this kind of whitewash, volumes under the sun, with a lot of shades, protecting from the sun. And this is the same university, but in the north of Spain, the Celtic part of Spain. So he's using another set of tools, another set of architectural elements. So the response, the answer to the same question is completely different depending where he's working. No? And this is like how he uses tradition, no? In a very free but very thoughtful kind of way. No? And he's not only the only one that is using this kind of use of tradition or constructing this kind of, let's call it like constellation of forms, no? For each project. No? But there are other examples like Ramón Gómez de la Serna, the Spanish writer, or Julio Camilo, or Avi Warburg in the field of history of art. Okay? And Julio Cano was always making this kind of constellation or this kind of archipelago of references for the projects that were like, most of them were between among like the modern moment in Europe, the classical architecture, European architecture, and some other references to, more personal references to his own work, his own personal work as an artist and as an architect. Okay, so we have been studying this for many years. We published this book, no, about his work and his methodology. Okay, and he belongs, it's important to situate him also into the Spanish tradition. He belongs to this second generation. He was working with Fernando Moreno Barbera, that is one of the first modern architects in Spain, that he was specialized also in universities, okay, with a lot of care for the material. So this is a characteristic that is also present in Julio Cano Lasso, that is a lot of care of the material depending on the site, and a lot of care about the methodology and the insertion of tradition into the work. Okay, so what are the architects that has been using this methodology? What are the heirs of Julio Cano in the history of architecture in Spain? For example, Alberto Campo Baeza, this is an architect that is still working. No? You see like the same care in the materiality, the same care in the traditions, no? in inserting the traditions into modern architecture. For example, Ignacio Mendaro, this is a work in Mexico. Selgas Cano, that is a very prominent practice today, that they have like another completely different style, but they are very related with Julio Cano because Lucia Cano is his daughter and Jose Selgas is his son-in-law, so they are family, in fact. No? But you see like the materiality and the care of the experimentation with the technical condition of architecture of the materials. No? So these are pictures. And of course, Studio Cano Lasso, where Ines and I were working for 9 years. Okay? And actually, this is the office of Julio Cano Lasso, so we were working exactly in this part of the, I think I can draw. No? So we're sitting exactly there for 9 years, making lines, okay? Okay, so it's a very traditional kind of architecture, but it's also a very modern kind of architecture, okay? You can see it. And while working there, we had like growing responsibilities, of course, in 9 years. And we ended up like being the directors of many of the works of the office. For example, this is a very good example of the work that we did there. That is this office in Madrid for the public transportation company of Madrid. That is, you can see it's a very technological object with a lot of care in the material, in the performativity of the materials of the facade. And it's like a, see, it's a building that is actually hanging, no, from these beams, no? So it's like a big beam with a lot of hangers, no? And the building is hanging from there, no? So it's a lot of effort in the technological development of the building, but also it's very rooted in the European tradition of modern movement. For example, it's very similar, no, to the work of Terragni, Fellini and Pollini, no, to the work of the South American brutalists, no, like Lina Bobardi, no. So the right part of the slide is Lina Bobardi, and the left part is the building that we built, no, in Madrid. So they have like a lot of things in common, no. This is another work that we did for Studio Cano Lasso, that is this multi-purpose pavilion. Again, it's a highly technological building, but also it's a highly traditional building. Okay, so if you see the plan of this building, I remember myself tracing on top of the Coliseum, the plan of the Coliseum. You see the form is exactly the same because the visibility of the Coliseum is perfect, no? So we wanted to have this for this building. And even like the structure of this building, that is a tension structure that is hanging from the sides, like has like a compression ring and a tension ring, is based on the velarium of the Coliseum. So it's a very traditional, it's an interpretation, it's a reenactment of a traditional architecture, no, that we found. Okay, and of course, in one moment we started our own practice, okay, and we started doing what we knew, no? Like doing the same things, no? Like a very technological kind of architecture with a very industrial kind of architecture. This is a social housing in Madrid as well, but also using, for example, in this one, using traditional devices, no, to root our architecture, to relate our architecture to the traditions of the Madridian architecture or the Spanish architecture in general. For example, you can see these houses. These houses are houses that have only one window. That is not a window, that is this patio. No, it's a vertical patio. That is this, that can, no, like the shutters can slide, no, into the building. That is very related with the tradition of patios, like Mediterranean patios of the vernacular architecture in Spain, but changed from a horizontal position to a vertical position. No? So we explore this in many of the competitions of our office. This is another project that can be a very good example of this kind of twofold kind of condition between tradition and technological development of the building. That is these temporary shelters in Parla, very close to Madrid as well. That is a building that is inspired, or is something that was always in the back of our mind, no? This drawing by Le Corbusier for Buenos Aires, that you can see that is very similar, no, to the final, no, thing that we did in Parla. And we started exploring, of course, other references like Ludwig Hilberseimer, no, or no, that are like embedded in this kind of architecture. And we started exploring the use of vegetation or green spaces to enclose like the public spaces of the building. This is a building that has like housing or temporary shelters on top, but public uses in the bottom, in the plinth. And we created some gardens, no, to enclose this space. No? So this is the first time that we started using this kind of vegetal architecture. In architecture, we explore this more in depth in other competitions. For example, we thought about this kind of idea of making the buildings like some kind of edges that were defining a public space, that were like architecture at the same time that were like a garden, a vertical garden. And we explored this in several competitions, like in this one that is a second prize, almost there. Okay, second prize for a lot of housing in Madrid. And you see in the diagrams in the right that there are a lot of spaces that are enclosed, no, are defined by this kind of vegetal kind of buildings. No? And more literally in these buildings in Guadalajara, this is a first prize, and that were like some kind of vertical gardens that were like facing south all the time to protect the houses from the sun, and also to create this kind of continuity between the horizontal and vertical planes of the public space. Okay, of course, there is a lot of references to Hilberseimer again, to Mies van der Rohe, to the IIT campus in Chicago. Okay, that is the only like a settlement unit by Hilberseimer that was able to build, no, even partially, no. But, okay, and our office is based where like our clients, we never had a private client until now, until COVID. We will talk about that later. But we do competitions, no? Architectural competitions. We have done like more than 100 competitions, and we won several of them. And so this is the specialization of the things that we do in the studio. No? But we wanted to show you one of these examples because this is a competition that we did and we won and we built 3 years ago. No, 5 years ago we finished the construction, 2017. Okay, and we choose this example because it's not only the work of our office that has been more published, no, worldwide, and that has been like more recognized internationally, but also because it's a very good example of this kind of reenactment of the same ideas in different buildings or in these different proposals of our office. No? For example, for this building.
So it's like this project of Villanueva de la Serena, this Congress Center, is part of it belongs to a family of projects where we were trying to wrap around a public space, but with a continuous building. Other members of this family are those two projects, the competition for the Social Cultural Center in Ibiza, and this other cultural center in Valladolid. In this family of projects, we were trying to achieve complexity into the spaces through the use of a basic geometry that was coming from the divisions of the square. As a reference for these geometries, we use the body of work of the Spanish painter, also formed as an architect, Pablo Palazuelo. In the model, so it's like, usually when you're thinking in a fluid space, this is the kind of work that is related with fluid spaces where parametric software is needed, and this is rising up the budget of the construction a lot. So for example, in the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, the budget was $130 million for the double of the area that we have in our Congress Center, but our budget was only $10 million. 130 million dollars. Again, $10 million. So it's a huge gap. So as we couldn't, the only way for us to achieve this complex geometry was using another kind of tool. So as you can see in the model of the competition, we were trying to achieve this complexity between the divisions of the squares and the fluid geometry inside, and in the extended sections, you can see our interest in creating continuous spaces. The site of the building is situated in the boundary of the town between the town center and the crop fields that are surrounding the city. So we wanted also our building to be a transition between these two worlds. And therefore, we wanted our project to be like a landscape. Not a building, but a landscape. So in order to achieve that, we wanted a new landscape, the main facade of our building that was the roof, but also we created this part that is a public square accessible for everybody. And also a public part in the other side that is created with the crop fields. So as you can see in this aerial view, it is some kind of intermediate space where these two worlds meet. We wanted to have a public park that was not the typical park, but that was related with the agricultural landscape. So we use local weeds and local crops for the plants in the roof. The surrounding fields that in some moments of the year looks like some kind of fabric. So we take advantage of this situation for the design of our roof. As we wanted to have a landscape and not a building, we use landscapes references. So for example, we use in this case the reference of the ha-ha. That is this kind of fence, this English landscape device that they use to keep the cattle out of the houses without being visible, no? Without seeing a wall. So it is some kind of invisible fence that you can see here and here, and that you actually can see in the development of our project in the same way. So you can slide down into the building or slide up on the top of the park. And this is the space that it creates. So you can see the crop fields surrounding the building in one side. And in the other picture, you can see the background of the more urban part of the project. So we wanted to make a landscape, as I said, but we found two big problems. One was the program. You know, it's like it's a building that should be divided in two big parts. So there is part of the program, all those parts that are written in black, and this other part of the program, the one in green, that needs a different schedule and also a different entrance. The other problem with the program was the theater. We need to add a theater hall that is a problem. Why? Because having a theater hall means that at the end the building is going to be something as blocky and big as you're seeing in those images. And this is for a very functional reason. It's just that you need a box stage, a case stage, that in our case was a 6-floor stage building that we need to put inside our own building. So this, for example, is the section of the Scala of Milano theater. So you can see that the proportions between the stage and the area that you use for the theater are really, really unbalanced. So in this set of diagrams, you can see how we try to push our building into the ground in different iterations until we reached the point where it was impossible for us to completely hide the stage box. So we decided to take advantage of this situation, and this duality of the program gives us the opportunity to place all these things in the secondary kind of program on the top of the stage. So providing then a different entry and a schedule, and creating this box with the intention of also being a landmark into the landscape. So that marks is in a very continuous landscape and mark the institution that is host inside. We tried to create something similar that was the church steeples or the stork nest or the bales of hay are doing in the landscape around our building. We use for the structure of this box this more artistic reference that is the work of the German-Venezuelan sculptor Gego, that has this kind of hanging structures. So we actually make this skin that was made in ropes, hanging everything with this tangle of tension members, cables, and wires, and putting this kind of rope skin outside the building as a shade device. It is a very performative skin because you can have a very different transparency of the skin depending on the light conditions that happening inside or outside the building. And these are the ropes that are naval claim plastic ropes mimicking the colors of the surroundings. As we needed to have a structure inside under this skin, we decided to have something more continuous, like a shell, made out of concrete that is like a cell with perforations that have also the same geometry that the rest of the building around. This part of the building is more related with the burrows of animals, the hives of wasps, or other kind of more animal architecture related with raft conditions. We wanted to have this kind of contrast between the delicate interior and the raft exterior. And we used foam work that was very rough. In fact, was directly firewood into the concrete. And we contrasted it with some kind of more delicate surfaces, making references of the condition of the subsoil of the area that is always full of water. So as this area has a lot of water, we wanted to have a continuous and seamless kind of skin in those spaces, creating a reflection, just creating a reflection, this watering condition ambient inside. So those are the sections of the two main spaces. This is the camera music hall and the symphonic and theater hall. And both relied on the materiality and on light in order to activate those spaces and to create different sensations depending on the interior and exterior conditions of light. Those are the plans of the box. This box that is the landmark of the building. No? And it's also a very simple geometry sealed with this skill wrapping around. But this simple geometry is perceived as a very intricate and complex interior space. As this is the upper level, that is the restaurant on the top, or this other photo that are the rehearsal rooms that are in the intermediate level. And at the end, what we achieve is a building that is both a landmark and also very integrated through the color and in the landscape and the surroundings.
As we talk about like this kind of wheel for office of having like this kind of dual or twofold kind of condition between art and more functional or engineering kind of things. So I think it's very important to explain also what we achieve with these things from the functional point of view. No? Because just sinking the building into the ground, what we achieve is, first of all, like sharing all the bedrooms, storage rooms, no, of the building. So we have like the possibility of having only one of each for this. We also share like the mechanical systems in between these two stage boxes. Okay, the mechanical systems in this building was half of the budget, so it was very important to reduce this part of the budget. And also, like sinking the building, what we achieve is to have like a better thermal behavior of the building, to have like less solar gain. So the machines were much smaller, and we have like the possibility of cooling the machines with the underground water. So we have like the budget was like divided by 2, no? During this through these operations. No? And another thing that is like very important to understand of this kind of a scheme is that by doing this kind of sunk building, what we achieve is that instead of having all this facade, that is the second part that is more expensive into the project, we only go to the next. We only had this facade, no? So we can save a lot of money in the facade, so we can spend more money in the parts of the facade that we actually wanted to be more prominent, no, into the building. Okay, and now we are going to talk about the current work of our office. So this is a work that the auditorium was like finished 4 years ago. Okay, so now what we found is that we had private clients in our office for the first time in our life. No, we have like due to COVID, no, we have like people that were coming and asking us to make single-family houses. No? And we have like a family of these projects at the end of the lecture, because I think it's very interesting how they are. We try to recover the single-family house. That is something that was like more like a formal experimentation, just like more like a whimsical kind of project, no? And transforming it into some kind of exploration of new ways of life, no? And how people want to live, no, after COVID, no, and how this situation can change, no, architecture, no. So for example, the first example is this house in the north of Spain, in Asturias, that is a house for a family that wanted to go to leave the downtown of the city of Oviedo, and they wanted to have like a life in the countryside, but without engaging the countryside. Without bugs, without, no? Like just like a very kind of visual kind of contact with the countryside, no? So they ask to have also a house that can work completely online, that they can have like their own spaces that can be transformed from a bedroom to an office, no? Very easily. So we came up with this idea of using this kind of vernacular granary of the north of Spain that is called an hórreo. That is, as you can see, like some kind of stone structure with some kind of timber structure on top that is very slender and it's like almost like a tension kind of thing, no? And it's like several parts, but the important thing is like, of course, we have like more modern kind of reference as well, but what we end up is like taking advantage of the new technological advances of timber in Spain. So now we are starting in Spain to, like in the center of Europe and the north of Europe, to work with CLT. So we developed this kind of system that is a big pile that isolates the building from the landscape, and a set of beams on the upper part. You can see these are like the CLT beams here, here and here, no? So these CLT beams that create like a cantilever. Go to the next. And from that cantilever, we hang Now we can go this one. And from this cantilever, we can hang. It's difficult to find the. From this cantilever here, we hang this level here. That is a level without a structure or anything. So it's the place where you can take advantage of the landscape surrounding the building. Okay, and the upper level is a very private, very enclosed kind of part of the house. No? So in the upper part, there are the bedrooms that can be transformed into small offices, no? for online work. And the lower part is a open field, no? That is like visually connected to the landscape. Okay, next. So you can see here the sections of this house, okay, like the difference between the upper level, no? The closed upper level and the very open lower level. Okay, so we created like some kind of suspended life, no, for them, no? into the landscape, like very green landscape of the north of Spain. Okay, next. And created this kind of transition between the interior and the exterior all the time, no, to the building that you cannot tell where you are, no, if you are inside the building or outside the building sometimes, no, but also elevated from the terrain. The second example of this kind of project is this house in the mountains, very close to Madrid, okay, in El Escorial, and the situation was completely different because they bought this plot of land that was very expensive. It was like full of trees, very big, no? And they spent most of their budget like buying the land. No? So they asked, okay, we need something that is extremely inexpensive. Okay, the budget was like minimal. No? So, but the good thing is that they actually wanted to have a life that was like mostly outside. They were like all the time hiking, and this is very close to a lot of hiking trails and things like that. So they were like, their aim is to live outside, no, the house. No? So we thought immediately about, okay, what is the cheapest way of building in Spain? No? And the cheapest way is this kind of prefab, pre-tension pieces, no, of concrete that are not only inexpensive but highly available. They are very easy to transport. They are not very handsome. I mean, it's kind of no architecture that is like, no, it has become like a very common, no, in Spain. For everything you do this kind of sheet of thing, no, for any agricultural building or something like that. But we had like a good reference for this in the history of architecture of Spain. That is the work of Fernando Higueras that he was using in the 70s, 60s in this case, was using these kind of pieces, but in a big size, no? More like in a oversized, no? Format, no? For making these cantilevers, no? In this house, for example, this is the house of Lucio Muñoz, a very famous painter in Spain, and this house is very close to the site. It's like 10 minutes driving from the site we were doing. Of course, again, we have like references that are more personal, probably from our experience, no, in the US. For example, Richard Neutra, in these houses that are perched in the hills very close to Los Angeles or in Beverly Hills. Okay, and we came up with this system, no, that is like, this is a very steep slope that is rock completely, so you cannot excavate there. It's very expensive to excavate. So we were like stepping down the building without, if you see the footings, you see that there is no excavation almost. So very small excavation to minimize the budget. And also we wanted to have like this kind of duality, no? From the back, the building is almost invisible. It's this continuous landscape with some kind of terrace at the end. So you see the landscape of the mountains at the end of the house. So it's only a canopy for the car, and then a stair going down. So this is the plan. And then the other side, no? So this is the elevation and the plan of the building. Go to the next. And the other side is like a perching house, no? That is like facing the landscape, no? And it's mostly a canopy. I mean, it's like these kind of beams, no? Just stacked one on top of the other, and with some kind of very light enclosure. So you can depending on the conditions of the weather, you can live outside or inside, no, opening this membrane, no, and transitioning from the inside to the outside very freely, no, when you can, no, in the summer and in the spring. No? So you get this kind of outside life, no, like all the time. It's like camping, no, into the slope of the mountains. Okay, and the third one was another case that was completely different. So this was an experiment more about the way of which the families are formed today. No? So this is a couple from Germany that they wanted to move to Spain, and they had young children, but they had also the son and the daughter from previous relationships. They had another family. They had married and they have children themselves. No? So they wanted to have like some kind of seasonally them like living together, no, in the same house. So they asked for some kind of dual house, no, a double house, no, for them, no. And they wanted this to be in wood because they are used to live in a house in wood in Germany. So they wanted us to explore the possibilities of making this in wood. No? And this is another site that is very close to the second site that I showed you. But this has like this kind of views to this World Heritage site that is the monastery of El Escorial. So from the house you can see this. No? So this is a very important landmark in Spain, a very important monument. And they wanted, of course, to have views from even from the bathroom to the monastery. Okay, so we researched and we found this reference that is a very famous one. We didn't research a lot. Okay, that is the Alejandro de la Sota and Corrales y Molezún. This is the children's residence in Miraflores de la Sierra, that is in the same mountains, like more in the east. Okay, and it's this kind of timber structure that is following the slope, exactly the slope of the mountain. Go to the next. You can see in this section, no? So the slope of the terrain and the slope of the building are exactly the same. So from all the spaces you can see, no, through the building, and you can achieve like the views, very long views, no, through the building, no? And also like technologically and tectonically, we were very interested in this kind of architecture, no? So you can see that this is the double house, no? So they have we had to put like the bedrooms in 2 levels. So this is the house for the son and the daughter, and this is the house for the couple. They wanted to have also some kind of a studio, some kind of workshop, because they publish and they work in edition. Okay, but you can see that this intermediate level is completely open, so you can always see, you know, from everywhere. You can achieve views, no, of this monastery of El Escorial, even from the back of this space. No? So again, it's a building that is like going down by half levels. No? It's like a stepping down the slope. You can see the section here. So every stair here is half level of the building until you reach like the lower level that is like the house for the daughter and the son. No? Okay, and again, you can see that is, no, like the achievement of this house is like the transparency of this space. No? Okay, so it's a house that is like made with very small pieces of timber to be able to transport everything to the top of the hill, because it's very a little bit remote. It's not far away, but it's very steep. Okay, so we needed to have a plan to move all these pieces, no, to the top of the hill. No? And you can see here the transparency of the achievement of the views, no, of this. So this is the back of the house. This is like the workshop, and you can see the views, no, from here of the monastery of El Escorial. And of course, one thing that is, I think, important nowadays, that is like the connection between interior and exterior. That is, in Spain is not so fluid as in the US. In the US, it's like more, no, like life is more outdoors more times. No? In Spain, it's like more, or you are in or you are out. No? It's like there is a boundary there that is more difficult to trespass. No? And I think this is changing, no? With COVID. No? We have like this sensation that like life outdoors, no, is more important than ever, no, and we have like this kind of, this is the center of the house nowadays, no, this kind of patio, this kind of intermediate space where you can have like the working space in the left, like the living spaces in the right, no, and this kind of garden or space, no, for the family, no, intermediate space. Okay, so in the same way that Julio Cano was doing his maps, his constellations of references, we can do exactly the same for projects. No? This is the Julio Cano, so this is our constellation, this is our archipelago of references, and this is the way that we want to connect with the traditions of Spanish architecture, modern movement, like Spanish art, no, sometimes, no? But it's a way in which I think we can reactivate or reenact these traditions in a way that we are actually trying to change them, no? Trying to change the perception that people that see our work can have of these traditions. No? And we are going to end with another statement. We are this way, sorry, okay? And that is, okay, this division between like the functional requirements of architecture and other requirements, so that architecture, of course, is a public service. I mean, we need to achieve a number of relevant social, functional, environmental, and technical requirements. So this is not required in other arts, no? But the fulfillment of these requirements is part of the contract that we do with society, it's part of the ethical dimension of our discipline, so it's mandatory. But the relevance of a work of architecture, like the quality of the work of architecture, is not measured by the fulfillment of these requirements. So this is something that is mandatory. This is more for the students. Okay? It's not about checking boxes and saying, okay, I'm very good, no, in all these functional things, but in the quality of the new order created by the architect to achieve them, okay? And by the revaluation that this work produces in the past of the tradition in which it is inscribed, okay? In what you add to the tradition in which you feel that you belong to, okay? So this is our take on architecture. Thank you very much, and I think we open for questions. Or
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys, for that amazing lecture. I think it was, I knew most of the work. I didn't know the last ones, and it was really, really, at the same time, like very familiar and incredibly refreshing. So it was really cool. I have plenty of questions, but I would like, as we usually do, to have the students ask first. So, okay, we go with Michael and Josiah.
Okay, thank you for the lecture. So my question is, what lessons have you learned from the competitions that you didn't win?
We almost learn everything from the competitions we did. It's like we have been working in competitions, I don't know, if we have been working in architecture for 25 years, almost 20 of them. So it's like, and I think that is really interesting also for the students, because it's the way in which you work at school. You have a short period of time to develop one idea. You need to present it, as you're doing in your final boards in the review, and then you need to buy them, no? And you need to be the best. If not, you're not. If you're not winning, you're not building. So it's a really good exercise. We recommend competitions, no? The working competitions to everybody, especially the students, because it makes you think a lot, fast, and produce also in a way that is the best way to explain your ideas to others. So it has almost everything that you need to work in architecture, no? Because the rest of the parts of of the professional work are related with another kind of task. No? When you're developing the project, when you're talking with the contractor, or it's different. But this part, especially the part that you're developing in the competitions, is the part that is more related with the work that you're doing at the school, and is the most interesting one, refreshing in terms of keeping you alive and wake up.
We have been in reviews here, and many of them have been in competitions. No?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in many schools. I think it's a very good idea. I mean, because what Ines is saying was completely right. I think the learning curve in a competition is super high for you. So it's worth to do as many as you can in the school. And maybe you win it. And they give you an award, and it's very rewarding. You win.
Yeah, you always win something. So. No. Where we really learned was for those that we love.
Yeah, and as you see, you are reenacting. The lecture was called like a creative reenactment, and you are reenacting like the same ideas and trying the same ideas until they work. So you have to refine your ideas, and this is through competitions, and of course losing competitions.
Yeah, because we always work, the work of an architect is always organized in families, and it's just exploring the same ideas. So the competition is a really good way to check what is wrong. So when you fail, it's why I failed. What I need to make better for next time. So it's the most refreshing part of the architect's work.
For example, one exercise that we do with a competition is just download like the winning entries, and just study, saying, okay, why this guy, not saying, that's horrible, it's an injustice because we were much better. No, just study, just learn, why this guy won the competition and why you did it.
Yeah, and it's really, it's
like
nice.
A sport. You have to be very sportive. You lost. Okay. Perfect. What can I learn? This.
And this kind of analysis of how others respond to the same question in a different way is super interesting. It's like, it's where you're really learning. It's like, okay, we had the same problem. It's like an exam. You have the same question, but why this guy responded in a different way? And what were they achieving that we didn't, or why? So it's like, and for that you need to submit first the competition. If not, just looking at boards is not the same thing. It's just you need to try first, and after that analyze for the result.
Yeah. And also drives you to think that the essential thing in architecture is not the question, it's the answer. So the question is the same for everybody, in a competition, and the answer is the important thing. So it's up to you. It's not that you have like a very good program and like sometimes in the studio, you have like a very good brief, or something that is like it's going to be great, but your answer to this is not good. So it's the answer. It's not the question. Is not important. Like the functional things are not important.
So can you guys go?
So you talked about having a constellation or an archipelago of references for a project. So I guess my question is like, how do you go about creating that? Do you just find it's like an organic process that happens as you work, or is there something specific that you do?
The archipelago of references that we use was created like with time and after different needs. It's like, it's not something that is coming in advance, it's not something that you previously have, and it's changing for every project. It's like, okay, each time that I need to respond to a different question, I need to search. I need to search about that. And this is configuring this archipelago of ideas that sometimes are related with the last film that you watched, or book, the last book you read, or another architectural piece, or so it could be something really personal, or it could be more into the field of architecture, or also coming from another disciplines. But you never know. This is something that is coming after giving some thought to the next problem that you need to confront.
So I think it's very important to be culturally curious if you are an architect, and try to start building this kind of world around you and with your references, what the things that interest you as an architect, as just a cultural being, what are the things that you like, in the cultural life around you. And I want to stress the importance of one thing, that is the history of architecture. That is, sometimes history of architecture is just some kind of thing that is there in the curriculum, that is like, okay, something that you study and you pass and that's it. For me, it's the most important thing, to have like this kind of, to be able to situate yourself into the history of architecture and to be able to know, like the references that are close to you and that can be very useful for you, and be able to reinterpret like these kind of references in a way that is productive. Okay, so it's not, for me, I always advocate to integrate the history of architecture into the studio. Never happened in my life, in any school where I've been teaching, but I think it would be like a great idea to have like a professor of, a historian in the studio, framing your research about, for example, when you research about presents, that is something that everybody does in the School of Architecture, it's like a little bit aimless. I always find it like very aimless. You find things in internet, you just, I like this thing, but you don't have like a narrative that connects all these findings, and that can create this kind of archipelago of things or constellation of things that can feed your work. I mean, because the important thing is that this is your food, to produce. If you don't know this history of architecture, I don't know how you can produce something that is innovative or is new, because at the end, if you don't know the history of architecture, you are going to repeat things that are already like done. So it's very important to have like a very wide kind of architectural culture. And I would say also in the history of art, you have time, life.
So thank you for a wonderful presentation and wonderful work to go along with it. I was really interested in what you were talking about between the concept of art and the logical thinking of technology, and your projects really mend them together well. And my question is, where in your design process do you start to see that balance, and how does it influence the choices you make moving forward?
Well, the problem is that there are no boundaries. Means there is no moment where you change from one perspective to another, so you can change from the idea to the technological development of the project. Everything should happen at the same time. It's like, because when you want to materialize an idea, you need to know exactly how. What is in the market? How can I arrive to this point? Or the structure, if you didn't talk about the structures, but if you're talking, or our way of seeing the project is that you need to think in the structure that you're going to use for the building since moment one, Because if not, how are you going to create this space that you're thinking about? It's something that should go in parallel all the time.
Yeah, we don't believe in this kind of silo thing in the process of designing. That is, okay, you do first like the conceptual design, then you go to the design development, and then you go to the next step, and until you go to the details of the construction. Sometimes we start with the details. Depends on the project, but you have to have like everything together in a moment in the same paper. It's like you have the details, you have the references, you have like cultural things, technological things, and they are like melt together, no? And you have to be able to control everything, of course. But I think we don't have like stages of development of the project. No? And we, in our classes, for example, in Virginia, we try always to start with the construction from the beginning of the project. So it's the first time that we ask the students is, okay, how are you going to build this? Where are you? Are you in the top of a hill? How do you bring the materials there? Are you going to bring like big machines there, or do you want the small pieces? Or this start framing your thinking, no? Or what kind of a structure, no? What kind of materials are available on your side, no? What is the budget, or less, no? It's for a single family house, or it's a super fancy museum in Los Angeles, no? So you have like different things, no, to consider. And of course, all the time, you have like this kind of bombing from your background, from cultural references or things, no, that you want to repeat or reenact, no, in your project, no. But at the same time, is as we say at the beginning of the lecture, the response of architecture is always technological. I mean, if it is not technological, it's not architecture. It can be a book, it can be an article or something, but this is not architecture. It's an article about architecture. But architecture is the essence of architecture is being a technological artifact. So if you don't start from the beginning doing that and understanding that, you are aimless. No? You can be drawing like some kind of sketches forever, no? If you don't have a structure. You don't have like a material, no?
Why? Because when you're starting a project, if you have some kind of set of constraints, it helps you a lot. You don't know how to go with the project, but you know that you cannot do that, either that, because all those constraints, all those situations, no, the situation in which you are. So it's helping you a lot because it's reducing the number of possibilities. Just thinking about what you can do. At the end, is the best. As less things that you can do, as faster that you're going to arrive to the solution. So having all those constraints helps you a lot. So introduce them in your design process as soon as possible.
One maybe, because I can do the last one. No one else? Are you guys sure? So, okay, my question would be, so how do you imagine, and this would be like, it's a question like I imagine that an American student could come up with, right? How you imagine to translate this kind of critical practice that is very specific of the Mediterranean region. I would say it's very specific actually from Spain. I don't think you even find it in other regions of Europe, not even Central Europe or Scandinavia, or how this which merges this hybridization that merges culture and tectonics and technology and so on. How you bring that level of complexity to the American context, right? Are there ways, because we see that you guys are doing still projects in Spain. Obviously, it's not that easy. I understand, right? But you guys have been here for a few years. You understand the difference of the context, and here the power that the power of money here, the power of private clients is really, really different. Right? That is something that I have been, when I show my work here, when I think about my own work here, I always struggle with that. How do you translate that? It's like so different, so separate. I don't know. You guys any smart answer for that?
What we have is like, we agree with you, it's really difficult to do that, no? It's because we work in a completely different way. No? So the thing that is giving us being here is like, okay, first of all, you can see from far away what you used to do. So you can analyze, no? From outside, you have a different perspective that is always enrichment, no? And how to translate or how to transport or try to came with this practice here, such a difficult thing. It's like, the way of working is completely different. We're learning a lot here about how to behave in the relationship with all the different agents in the process and
the roles of the different parts of the construction or the design are completely different. No? Here in Spain, no? Like the responsibilities of each of them, the engineers, the architects. No? So we are learning. The good thing is that we have opened a lot our archipelago of references, no? To a more American kind of construction techniques, architectural theory, architectural references, or cultural references, no? That are more American now than there were when we were in Spain. No? So I think our set of tools is much bigger, no? Wider at least.
Yeah, but we agree, it's a completely different kind of behavior, no? Because in Spain, at least, the architect is the chief of everything, you know? Nobody is saying anything against what you're saying, and you're the responsible of everything. The structures, the mechanical systems, you're signing up for everything, and it's you who's going to go to jail if something happens, no? So, but that gives you a power, no? It's like that, no? It's exactly like that. And here is a completely different kind of relationship. It's a balance, no? So it's interesting. No?
So you need to negotiate more, no? The relationship. In Spain is more like a dictatorial kind of thing. No? Okay.
That is
demolish this wall, and the wall goes. I mean, that's it. No? You go with a sprayer and you say, go. It goes, because if not, you put that they don't demolish the wall, and they have a legal problem, no? Because they have a contract with you. No, but here you do this, and this guy is doing. So it's a completely. We are learning, no, how to change.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys again for being here and for giving this kind of new perspective that I'm sure everyone really enjoyed. Thank you. Thanks a lot.